In this video, I'm going to show you how to generate a magnetic sexual energy field around your body that makes girls hunt you for sex wherever you go. This energy field makes any girl within a 5-yard radius instantly horny, instantly aroused, and it makes her stare at you, drool over you, and if she's feeling particularly confident, it even makes her walk directly over to you and start a conversation. I've had girls come up to me at bars and even on the street and hug me, start squeezing my bicep, putting their hands on my waist, pretty much molesting me. I get approached by hot girls every single night I go out. I've slept with well over 100 women at this point using the technique I'm going to show you. Despite the fact that I was an incel in college, I couldn't get a girlfriend, couldn't even get a date, but once I learned how to create this magnetic sexual energy field, my life changed. And the secret to doing this comes down to a certain substance that you need to produce in your body. It's a substance that I call ILLUSIUM. ILLUSIUM is the dark energy of attraction. It is the God particle of desire. ILLUSIUM is also like a drug, and the more ILLUSIUM you hold in your body, the more attractive you will be to women. It surrounds your body like an atmosphere, like a mist or a gas, and it intoxicates any woman who comes near you. So what is ILLUSIUM and how do you get it? Well, before I explain this, I want to clarify that what I'm going to say in this video is not scientifically validated. ILLUSIUM is not something you can put under a microscope and see. Scientifically speaking, it probably does not exist.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it. It's totally made up. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. This one was invented by a writer.
Now, why would I invent a fictional substance in order to explain how to do this very real technique of attracting women? Well, the answer is the idea of ILLUSIUM that I'm going to show you may not be scientifically true, but it's a useful model. And as they say in statistics, all models are wrong. Some models are useful. So what is ILLUSIUM exactly, and how does it give you this magnetic field around you, this sexual atmosphere that almost compels girls to hit on you? Well, the best way I could start to explain this to you is imagine for a second that we're in a kind of science fiction universe, okay? Like something from a superhero movie or from Star Wars. And let's imagine that in this fictional universe, there is a magical substance that gives the man who wields it godlike powers. The substance is called ILLUSIUM because what it does specifically is it gives you the power to create illusions in other people's minds. It lets you warp and bend and control their perception. The men who possess large quantities of this substance are called wizards or magicians. They're able to make people see whatever they want them to see. A man who has ILLUSIUM and knows how to use it can make people see him as beautiful or hideous. He can become invisible. He can make people think he's levitating or flying in the air, even though his feet never leave the ground. This gives the wizard incredible powers over reality because if you think about it, when it comes to human beings, perception is reality, or perception is at least as important or sometimes more important than reality. And so these wizards who know how to obtain ILLUSIUM and know how to use it, they can't create actual changes in physical reality, but they can make anyone who comes near them hallucinate anything they want. And this is effectively as good as the real thing. There is one catch though. ILLUSIUM is also a drug. It has mind-altering properties. And so the more ILLUSIUM you have, the more it starts to bend and twist and warp your own perception of reality as well. And so these wizards, they're in a classic catch-22 situation, classic double bind. On one hand, the more ILLUSIUM you hold in your body, the more power you have over other people by creating hypnotic illusions in their minds. But also, the more ILLUSIUM you have, the more of this mind-altering substances in your system, the more vulnerable you are to hallucinations and illusion yourself, and thereby falling into delusion, madness, and error. And so ILLUSIUM and the reality-altering powers that it gives you is something like a Faustian bargain. It's a classic double-edged sword. It's like you have the power to shoot fireballs out of your hands, but when you do that, the fire also burns your own hands as well. And so you have to be very careful about how you wield this power. All right. So what's the point of this analogy? How does this get you laid? Why have I just spent 5 minutes laying out this completely fictional universe and telling you about this imaginary magical substance called ILLUSIUM? Well, the point is, ILLUSIUM is real. Okay, what I've just laid out for you is actually not fictional at all. It is a straightforward and completely factual description of how reality, our reality, really works.
Is it possible this story is true?
Yes, it is. You're right. It's fact. Yes. Yes. A similar event did take place. You're right. You were right.
Our research found a published report of a similar story.
There is actually a magical substance that gives you the power to make people hallucinate, to make them perceive mirages, illusions, in the place of reality, but which also makes you more likely to hallucinate yourself. The substance is sex, sexual energy. If you want to put a fine point on it, the substance is semen. Okay, ILLUSIUM equals semen. That's what this analogy is really about. Semen, sexual energy, is the illusion molecule. It is also the magic molecule. It is a substance which gives you the possibility of developing and controlling magical powers. And these are not the kind of magical powers that let you levitate or become beautiful or go invisible, but they are the kind of magical powers that let you make people experience the illusion that you have done those things or other things like them. In other words, semen, sex energy, gives you charisma. And I mean charisma in the old magical sense of that word, like a charm or a spell, putting a spell on someone, bewitching them, entrancing them, fascinating them, mesmerizing them. This is what sexual energy gives you the power to do, if you learn to control it. However, just like our analogy, sexual energy is a double-edged sword. The more of it you hold in your body, the more potent you are, the more charismatic, the more magnetic you become, the more you have the power to make people perceive illusions in place of reality. But also, the more sexual energy you have, the more vulnerable you yourself become to illusion, deception, hallucination, and unreality. But before we get to that, since we're on the topic of how to make women chase you, I should mention here that I have a book which shows you how to do this, and I'm going to let you have it for free today. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Making Women Approach You, no matter your looks, age, or money. And like I said, you can download this book that I wrote for you right now for free, no charge, just 60 pages long. You can read this in an afternoon, and when you do, you're going to learn 5 secret ways to make pretty girls approach you and ask you for your number, a date, or even sex, no matter your looks, no matter your age, no matter your money. This isn't bullshit. I didn't just have an AI write this or someone on Fiverr write this. Women approach me every single night I go out now, and it's because of these 5 specific things I do which cause that to happen. So if you want to learn those 5 tricks to make girls approach you, get my book now. Click the link in the description below to get that. When you do that, you'll be taken to my website, and just put in your email address on the next page and I'll send you the book now for free, no catch. Also, when you put in your email address, you'll be subscribed to my free email newsletter with new content from me every day about magnetism, attracting women, dating psychology, sexual psychology. This is the fucking hottest ticket in town right now. Nobody's putting out better content than my email newsletter, but it is private. It's exclusive. This is a secret society. It's not for the masses. It's not for the normal cattle. The only way to get on this newsletter is to subscribe, and you can do that right now by clicking the link below. So pause the video right now, click the link below, put in your email address. I'll send you the free book, How to Make Women Approach You. You will also be subscribed to my newsletter, and as soon as you've done that, come right back fucking here, eyes on me, and watch the rest of this video. Okay, so as I said in the outset, what I'm going to show you here is how to create a magnetic field of sexual energy around yourself that attracts women to you, pulls them towards you like gravity. Sexual gravity. And like I said, your attractiveness, your magnetism, your charisma, it comes from your sexual energy. It comes from your sperm, your semen, your testosterone, other substances in your body produced in your testicles that are associated with sex. And if you've watched some of my other videos, so far that's not new. Okay, what is new and what I'm going to introduce you to in this video is sort of a different spin on this. Okay, it's a different spin on what sexual energy really is and why it actually attracts women. And the bottom line here, what we're going to keep coming back to over and over again, is the fundamental idea that sex equals illusion. Okay, sex energy equals illusion energy, or what I call ILLUSIUM, this magical substance that distorts reality. And it distorts reality in 2 important ways. It acts as a drug on you, distorting your own perception of reality, and it also acts as a kind of force field. You can think of it as an atmosphere around you, like a kind of a mist or a gas that distorts the perception of anyone who comes near you. So sex energy deludes you. It casts a spell over you. It can also be used to cast a spell on others. That is the power of ILLUSIUM. That is also its inherent danger, the inherent risk or problem associated with using it. And if that all sounds weird to you, or if you don't fully understand what I mean by this yet, then don't worry. I'm going to explain this all thoroughly from every angle. And ultimately, I will be boiling this all down into step-by-step, making it very simple, something you can easily follow. But before we get to that, it's really, really important to understand what we're actually dealing with here. What is this energy? What is its nature? What do I mean when I say that sex equals illusion? What does that formula actually represent? And how does it manifest itself in our everyday life? So first of all, to understand this substance of sex energy and how to use it to make girls wet for you, you need to know where it comes from. And where does it come from? Evolution. The desire we feel, the sexual compulsion we feel, the chemicals in our body that produce that desire, they are the product of evolution by natural selection. And natural selection is blind. It does not have a goal. It does not make things better necessarily. It does not necessarily make organisms more intelligent or wiser or smarter or stronger. All natural selection does is to produce beings that are better at surviving and reproducing within a particular ecological niche, within a certain environment. Now, the logical conclusion of this, what many biologists and psychologists are now coming to realize, is that we did not evolve to see reality as it is. We did not evolve to be able to accurately perceive the truth about ourselves or the world, because that's not what evolution is selecting for. All that evolution is selecting for is whether or not an organism reproduces itself. In other words, have sex, create more copies of your genes. But seeing things as they really are does not necessarily make that more likely to happen. In actual fact, if you think about it, the more accurate your view of reality is, the less likely you might be to reproduce in many cases. You know, if you think about having sex, right? In that moment when you're in bed with a girl, you're both naked, are you thinking, I want to produce healthy offspring with her, and I want to work selflessly and sacrifice my life for the next 20 years to raise the child that we're about to produce? Is that what you're thinking? No. What are you thinking about? Titties. Titties good. It's titty time. So evolution tricks us into reproducing, and it does this using the power of illusion. Desire. Sexual energy is fundamentally an illusory energy. It's a hypnotic or hallucinatory energy. It's a drug. It distorts, it warps our perception of reality to make us more likely to do things that, at least in theory, will help us to spread our genes. An even stronger version of this happens when you're doing nofap, when you're doing what's called semen retention. And that's where you don't masturbate, you don't watch porn, you don't ejaculate. And guys do this because they believe it raises their testosterone and has a bunch of other benefits. But one thing you'll notice when you're doing nofap is that it actually increases the force of illusion. In other words, the longer you go without ejaculating, the more your sexual energy, your desire builds up. And this has an almost hallucinatory effect. It makes you see women as more attractive than they really are. As I heard one guy put it once, he said, nofap makes sixes seem like they're tens. And that's not actually a joke. It seems like a funny thing, and it is, but there's actually a real germ of truth there. The longer you go without ejaculating, the more attracted you will feel to the women you see out and about in your daily life. You find women more appealing. You find them more interesting. You see them as more beautiful, more radiant. They have a kind of a magnetism to them, a kind of a glamour. And again, I'm using these words like glamour or charm or fascination. These words all have their root in magic, in witchcraft. It's like having a spell cast on you. And that's what nofap or semen retention actually does. It's like casting a sex spell on yourself. It distorts your perception of reality to make women look more beautiful, more magnetic, because your balls are full. You've got all this sexual energy, this reproductive energy stored up in your testicles. It has nowhere to go. And so it actually starts to change your brain chemistry, to create illusions in your mind, mirages, to make girls look more attractive to you. Because again, what's it trying to do? It's trying to trick you into having sex with them and reproducing. It's like beer goggles, And what often happens is when you're doing nofap, because it gives you all this extra drive, all this extra energy, makes you more charismatic, more dynamic. And so you actually pull one of these girls, you take her home, you have sex with her, but then immediately afterwards you're like,
I've made a huge mistake.
When you were horny, you were hallucinating that girl was more beautiful, more fascinating, more interesting than she really was. But once you ejaculated, once the sex energy, the illusion energy, the magical energy left your system, you saw her as she really was. That's not always a very flattering thing, right? People talk about post-nut clarity. Clarity means having no illusions. It means seeing the world as it is. But the world as it is not a very beautiful place most of the time. As Nietzsche said, man cannot live without illusions. So that's the first kind of most obvious manifestation of this idea that desire equals illusion, that sex equals illusion. And as I said, you can simply test this in yourself. You can feel it within yourself. If you do nofap, if you do semen retention, you'll notice that it gives you more energy, more drive. It puts you in a better mood. You're more magnetic to people, but it also makes you more vulnerable to confusing illusion with reality. It makes you more tempted to look at porn because your libido is high. It makes you literally perceive women as more attractive than they really are because, again, the energy is trying to trick you into spreading your genes. ILLUSIUM, sex, is a great magician. Sex is a trickster. It works. Its whole nature is in creating illusions. All right. Now, so far, everything I've said should be pretty obvious to you. I think it's pretty straightforward, and we've all had experiences like this where you realize that, when you're really horny, you're not really thinking straight. Where this gets interesting, where it gets more esoteric or more occult, is that this sexual energy, this energy of illusion, it doesn't just delude you as the man who holds it. It doesn't just cast a spell over you, but it can also be used, it can be harnessed, it can be directed to cast a spell over the minds of others. And so the best way to explain this to you, I want you to think of this sexual energy, this illusion energy, as being like a gas or a mist, an atmosphere that surrounds your body like the atmosphere of a planet. You can also think of this as an energy field, a force field, a kind of an orb of energy around you. Now, this gaseous atmosphere around you, it is also like a drug. When you breathe it in, when women breathe it in, it has an intoxicating effect on them. It makes them aroused. It makes them experience desire. And there is actually some science to back this up. What I'm saying here, it's not purely just a metaphor. You know, there are gaseous substances around the human body called pheromones, and some studies have shown that when women inhale a man's pheromones, it actually makes them more aroused, it makes them more excited, and it goes the other way as well. You know, when you inhale a woman's pheromones, it raises your testosterone, it makes you feel aroused, raises your libido. They've shown that men who are around ovulating women have higher testosterone levels, and these sorts of effects happen. They are mediated through pheromones, this sort of gas or atmosphere that surrounds each human being. Now, in men, your sex pheromones, they are metabolized from testosterone. And where is testosterone produced? Produced in your balls, in the testicles. So in other words, pheromones quite literally come from your sex glands, from your sex energy. More sex energy equals more pheromones. More pheromones equals women are more attracted to you unconsciously. Now, that's the science behind what I'm saying here. But like I said earlier, I'm not trying to be strictly scientific in this video. I'm trying to explain a model to you from a bigger picture point of view. And the big picture view here is, again, sex equals illusion. Sex energy produces illusion. When you learn to control sex energy, you can produce illusions in others at will. But it all comes down to controlling this energy instead of being controlled by it. And so to really, really simplify this, to break it down, sex energy equals magic. More sex energy equals more magical power. Less sex energy equals less magical power. The more sex energy you hold in your body, the more concentrated or thick the atmosphere of this energy is, and the more of this illusion gas you have surrounding you, the more of this reality distortion field you have, the more attractive you will be to women, the more magnetic you will be to them. And they find you magnetic, they find you attractive because they're literally experiencing illusions in their mind. They're literally becoming intoxicated when they're near you and when they breathe in this gas, so to speak. So how do you do this? How do you create this magnetic field or this atmosphere of sex around you? Well, it should probably be pretty obvious from what I've said so far. You do this with semen retention. You do this by not ejaculating, by not watching porn. You do this by storing this sexual energy inside yourself, by not emitting it, by not wasting it. And the longer you do this for, the more of this energy you store, the more it produces this sexual energy field or this field of pheromones around you, what I call the ILLUSIUM field. And the bigger your ILLUSIUM field is, the more potent it is, the more concentrated it is, the more magnetic you become to women, the more your presence is literally like intoxicating to them. The more they find you attractive, they actually hallucinate that you are attractive, that you're handsome, sexy, etc., even if you're none of those things. So that's the basic kind of big picture view of how you do this. It's with semen retention, to put it straightforwardly. But where this gets tricky, where this gets a little bit more complex, is that most guys cannot do this, okay? They cannot do semen retention for long enough to produce this field. They cannot stick with it for long enough in order to maintain the field once they have it. And they also don't do semen retention properly because they tend to mix it with watching porn. And this has a kind of a contaminating effect on this energy we're trying to build, okay? This method doesn't really work if you're also watching porn. It's got to be strict semen retention and also strict no porn. That's how you build this substance. That's how you keep this substance pure and potent. That's how you ultimately build this field around you that attracts women for you. And again, that might sound straightforward, right? And it is. The method here is actually quite simple. What makes this tricky though, and why so many guys can't do it, it comes down to the inherent nature, the inherent properties of the substance of sex itself. Because like I said, sex energy, ILLUSIUM, is literally a mind-altering drug. And this is why it's so difficult to store more and more of this. Because the more of it you have, the more desire you hold in your body, the more it tends to produce illusions and mirages that cause you to then give in to temptation and ultimately to emit this energy and then to lose this energy. So it's kind of a paradox, right? It's a double-edged sword. The solution is also the problem, so to speak. And so what this all really comes down to is that if you want to become a wizard, if you want to learn how to use this substance to cast spells on women and on men for that matter, you've got to become the master of this substance of desire. You've got to break it in like you break a horse. You've got to become the boss of it rather than it being the boss of you. That's what this all depends on. And so I'm going to go through a few situations of how that comes up now, of how this kind of struggle plays out and how to successfully master this struggle. So the first one, and this is by far the most common, I get emails from guys every week asking me how to handle this. And this is just the most basic level of the problem, which is, the longer you do nofap, the hornier you get, the more your temptation to look at porn increases. And looking at porn, like I said, it contaminates this energy, causes it to lose its potency, its magnetism. Also, when you look at porn, you'll be tempted to fap, and then you'll splurge and you'll lose all the energy all at once. And then you're back to square one. And it's a common problem, right? If you've ever tried to do nofap, I'm sure you've run into this before. And so the simplest solution to this, just as a baseline, change the settings on your phone or your computer, whatever device you have, to block adult websites. Okay, you might have to install a plugin or a software to do this, or it might be native to your device. I think you can do this on the iPhone through screen time automatically. And so just simply putting a porn blocker or whatever it is you need to cut down on your temptation to look at porn, that is going to really, really help you to overcome these temptations. Now, that's the most basic level solution to this. But on a deeper level, what I need you to understand is that these temptations to look at porn, or, for other guys, it might even be things like getting escorts or whatever. When you're experiencing these temptations, it's actually good. Okay? And it's good for two reasons. The first is that when you're feeling that strong temptation, when you're feeling that strong energy of desire, that shows you have a high libido. And that's actually a good thing. Okay? We do not want to lower our libido with this method. We need our libido to be high. High libido is what gives you this magnetism to women. Okay? Your desire for them is the very same kind of electromagnetic force that is also pulling them to you. So we don't want to get rid of desire. We don't want desire to be low. We want desire to be high. And that's why I say that if you're experiencing these temptations, the harder you're struggling with them, that's actually a good thing. However, you have to be able to suppress them. Okay? You have to be able to feel that energy, that craving in your body, feel that lust, feel that heat, and you have to be able to hold that there and not give into it. I sometimes call this the HELLFIRE meditation, or the HELLFIRE technique, because it actually feels hot. I mean, like literally hot, as in like temperature. When you're feeling that lust, when you're feeling that temptation to fap or open up a porn site or whatever, when there's, fantasies or images going through your mind, you'll notice in your body, it actually feels hot. It feels like you're being consumed by flames. And so what you need to do in those moments, and this is like Sith Lord type stuff here, you need to be able to hold that heat in your body, let those flames consume you, but don't give in to the temptation. Don't do what the heat wants you to do. Because that's like pouring water on the flames to put them out. Don't put the flames out. Don't pour water on the desire by fapping. Maintain the desire. Feel the fire. And, imagine yourself as a monk on fire in meditation position as the flames consume him. This is incredibly hard to do, okay? In that moment, you're going to be like, fuck, I'm not saying it's easy, okay? But if you can stop yourself from giving into that craving and go do something else, take a walk, do some push-ups, whatever you need to do, in a little while after that, the desire will subside. And that's the first test.
You are ready. You are ready. You have passed. You have passed the test.
So that's the first principle to understand here. The more desire energy, the more temptation you feel, the more lust you feel, the more heat, the better. Okay, if you can channel it. You don't want to get rid of your libido. You don't want to do things that lower your desire. You want to actually inflame your desire, but you want to be able to control it. And that way you can then harness it like a ball of energy. The more times you feel temptation and overcome it, the more control over this energy you will have. Remember what I said about the wizards who have to learn to control ILLUSIUM, and it's like a Faustian bargain? The substance itself makes them more prone to delusion, illusion, madness, in this case, sexual temptations. But also, the more of the substance you have and can control, the more your power, charisma to others increases. And so the art here, the skill of this, what separates a Sith Lord from some amateur, is the self-discipline you need to cultivate to be able to hold larger and larger quantities of this ILLUSIUM, of this desire energy within yourself, without letting the substance control you, without being misled by it. You have to control it. It doesn't control you. And the way I think about this, the way I visualize it is like literal energy balls, like in Dragon Ball Z. They have those balls of lightning, those balls of electricity in their hands. That's the sex energy. That's how I think about it. When I'm feeling that temptation, I'm thinking, okay, good. I can feel the energy now. I can feel the electricity in my body. This is a power I'm holding now. And this same power, this is ILLUSIUM. This is magic, magical energy. You're actually feeling it in your body when you feel those temptations. You're feeling it in your mind when the temptation causes you to fantasize, to experience, mental images, lust that captures your imagination. So the whole trick of this is to hold the energy within you, to control the energy. Don't release it. Then you can use it on others. Then it will create this sexual field around you, this atmosphere that makes other people attracted to you. All right, now the second problem you're going to run into when you try this is going to come from women themselves. It's going to come from the temptation you experience to have sex with girls who you know you shouldn't. You know, they don't meet your ultimate highest ideals, your highest standards, but they're just making it so easy for you. And again, when you're doing semen retention, when you're doing this method, it has almost like a kind of a beer goggles like effect. You know, like I said earlier, NoFap makes 6s look like 10s. Because again, it all comes down to this fundamental premise, this fundamental idea that sex equals illusion, desire equals illusion. The stronger your desire, the more sex energy you have, the fuller your balls, to put it crudely, the more you will tend to mistake illusion for reality. Even love is an illusion, and it's an illusion that is rooted in sex, in sexual energy. You know, something I noticed, and I've been doing pickup and NoFap for many years. I picked up hundreds of girls this way. When I meet a girl and I take her home with me, I am fully in love with her in that moment, okay? Almost every single time. And it feels real in the moment. Like I actually genuinely find her interesting, fascinating. I feel like I'm in love with her. Because again, the sexual energy, what it does, its nature is to deceive you. It just wants you to spread your genes. That's all it cares about. And so it will create any illusion necessary in order to make that happen, up to and including the illusion of love. And of course, what happens when I actually have sex with the girl, you know, 90% of the time afterwards,
I made a huge, tiny mistake.
not always, you know, let's not be overly pessimistic here. Sometimes you do meet a girl and she is genuinely cool and, you know, you enjoy hanging out with her afterwards. But the point I'm making is desire, even love itself, is an illusion, and it's produced by sex energy. Again, sexual energy equals illusion energy. The sex energy wants to trick you into having sex with her, but where this gets even more interesting is that it also wants to trick her into having sex with you. And see, this is why sexual energy gives you this atmosphere I'm talking about. The sex energy, the ILLUSIUM, it distorts all of reality within its radius, within the radius of this field, so to speak, both your reality and her reality, because it's trying to trick you both into having sex to create more organisms, to create more souls for the soul farm, if you believe the kind of Lush theory. So the more of it you have, the more it will give you powers, charisma, potency to try to make that happen. And a large part of that potency actually comes from self-deception, self-delusion. Pure sexual energy will make you believe you're really in love with that girl in front of you. Because if you believe it, it makes you more passionate, it makes you more intense, more driven, and it makes you better able to deceive and seduce her. And this is why, by the way, you know, you constantly see girls talking about how every guy, every ex they've had manipulated them or he was a narcissist, but that's not actually what's really happening in most cases. You know, girls are misreading the situation. Most guys who are successful with women are not consciously setting out to manipulate those women or to deceive those women into having sex with them. It is they themselves who are being deceived. You know, Giacomo Casanova, one of the most notorious seducers in history, he said, "I don't conquer, I submit." The men who sleep with the most women are in fact the greatest victims of women. You also see this in Lord Byron's play Don Juan. You know, Don Juan is not presented as being this cold-hearted manipulator or seducer of women. Instead, he's presented as a victim who's too easily seduced by women. And so he ends up accidentally having sex with like thousands of them, you know? And it's quite funny, but there actually is a germ of truth to that. The greatest seducers of history are slaves to their love of women. They are slaves to this illusion that comes from having a very high libido, a very high sex desire. The greatest players don't just deceive women, they fundamentally also deceive themselves. And that's what makes them so seductive to women.
When I say that all my women are dazzling beauties, they object. The nose of this one is too large. The hips of another, they are too wide. Perhaps the breasts of a third, they are too small. But I see these women for how they truly are. Glorious, radiant, spectacular, unperfect. Because I am not limited by my eyesight. Women react to me the way that they do, Don Octavio, because they sense that I search out the beauty that dwells within them until it overwhelms everything else.
So again, the fundamental formula here is sex energy equals illusion, equals potency, equals power. And this is true in seduction, it's true in attraction, but it's also true in every other field. We see this in politics, we see it in religion. Men who start cults or found religions, men who become great dictators or political leaders, they have this hypnotic power over people. They have this charismatic magnetism that's rooted in their sexual energy. These men who are the most charismatic, the men who are the best at persuading, influencing, manipulating the masses, they also deceive themselves. It is that very illusion, that self-deception, that gives these men the potency they have to mesmerize others. You know, you can't be Hitler, for example. You can't seduce and persuade persuade millions of people to follow you unless you yourself really believe that you are working for the good. Greatness, power, it all comes from illusion, from self-deception. This is what gives you the power, the potency to bewitch others. And so you look into any cult leader, you look into any charismatic dictator, they are fundamentally wizards who are using this magical force of illusion, Illusium, sex energy. Hitler used this force, Mussolini used this force, Gabriel D'Annunzio used this force. He was this force. He's a very interesting figure, by the way. Gabriel D'Annunzio was a poet. He was a romantic writer, Italian, and he was basically a pickup artist. He seduced thousands of women. He wrote about his seductions, but then he used pickup artist techniques to become a dictator, and he basically invented fascism. Everything we associate with fascism, the black shirts, the Roman salute, the balcony speeches, the aesthetics, the theatrics, the militarism, the Nietzschean vitalist philosophy. D'Annunzio was the one who invented all this, and it was only Mussolini who later on copied it. And so D'Annunzio is sort of like a manifest form of this vital power, this force, Illusium. And like I said, he wasn't just a charismatic dictator, he was also a charismatic lover, a great womanizer, a notorious playboy and seducer. You wouldn't think this to look at him. He's short, he's bald, he's very slight, he's almost feminine, but this guy was banging literally thousands of girls. And we're talking like the absolute tippy top, most beautiful women, actresses, models in Italy at the time. And the reason why was because he was this extreme romantic. He was the embodiment of this sexual energy, this illusionary energy. And this energy gives a man extraordinary potency, vitality, virility, will to power. And this is the force that seduces. This is the force that magnetizes. It gives you a sexual field, an aura, an atmosphere around you. And so what I want to show you now is how do you actually get this step by step, how to obtain weapons grade Illusium and how to convert it into this seductive energy field, this atmosphere of sex around you that seduces girls for you. And so step one, probably obvious by now, is do semen retention. In other words, don't masturbate, don't ejaculate, don't have ejaculatory sex. This is how you build this energy, semen, sex energy, testosterone, pheromones. These things all increase when you don't ejaculate. Step two is don't look at porn. Sex energy is testosterone, it's semen, but it's also dopamine, and looking at porn completely burns out your dopamine receptors. So this method, it only works if you're doing no porn as well as no FAP. You need to have a low threshold for arousal, okay? That's what this all depends on. That's what desire energy Illusium actually is. It is a low threshold for arousal. The opposite of this is being kind of numb because you've burned out your dopamine receptors by watching porn. Step three, when you feel the desire, when you feel the temptation to look at porn or to FAP, suppress it. This will feel like a heat. It will feel like a fire, and you have to learn to suppress that desire. You have to feel that temptation, feel that fire, but not give into it. That is how you start to get control over this energy. Now, this is somewhat counterintuitive. There are some guys who are asexual. They have a very low libido, very low desire, even when they're doing no FAP. This technique is not really going to work for guys who are like that. Okay. If you're feeling a temptation to jerk off or to watch porn, that's actually good if you can harness it, if you can transmute it, because the temptation feeling actually is this energy we're talking about. Okay. If you're feeling those temptations, if you're feeling those cravings, that's a good thing. It means you have a healthy libido. It means you have this energy, but you have to become the boss of it and not let it be the boss of you. So when you feel that craving, when you feel that temptation to pull up porn or whatever, suppress it. Don't give into it, but feel that fire, feel that heat, and actually come to appreciate that energy, appreciate that heat. That energy you're feeling in your body at that moment, that's what this whole method depends on. Again, think of this like a horse, right? Imagine you're an ancient warrior and you have a horse, and that horse can be your best friend. That horse can be your partner. It can be your weapon in war. But in order to do that, you have to break the horse first. Okay. You have to break its spirit. When you break the horse, then it will be loyal to you. Then it will follow your commands. It will be fearless in battle, but you have to break it. You have to show it who is boss. And it's the same way with this sexual energy that builds up inside you. The sexual energy is the horse. It has to be broken first before it can become your friend, before it can become obedient to you. And you break it, you humble it when you feel that fire, you feel that temptation, but you suppress it down and, go do some push-ups or something. The more times you do this, the more obedient that energy will become to you. And now you can control it. Now you can channel it. Now you can direct it. In really advanced Taoist sexual energy practices, they talk about being able to control this like a literal ball of energy in your hands. And what you'll notice is when you have a strong temptation like that, and when you successfully suppress it, when you win that inner battle, it's usually about a day or two after that that you start noticing the magnetism effects from women. In other words, that's when you start noticing girls looking at you more, checking you out more, you're more attractive to them. So very important to understand, the successful struggle against the temptation is what gives you the power in this method, okay? It's not just the fact that you're passively doing nofap. The energy is given to you every time you actively win those inner battles. Step 4, put yourself around hot girls. Put yourself in environments every day if you can, or at least every weekend, where you're around a lot of hot young women. This is almost as important to this method as nofap itself, okay? Some guys will do nofap and they won't see any results. And why is that? It's because they're not actually around hot women almost ever. And that's a problem because your body only produces as much sex energy and testosterone and all these other things as it thinks it needs. You know, testosterone is a social chemical. Sex energy is a social substance. Your body produces it to deal with other people. Your body gives you testosterone in order to dominate other men in challenges, in competitions, and to attract women sexually. And so you mainly increase testosterone, desire, sex energy by putting yourself in situations where you actually need it to increase. And you know, a lot of guys, especially in the self-improvement world, they have this idea in their head now that, you know, if I just get my 8 hours of sleep and I track my calories and my steps and my Apple Watch, and if I take zinc and vitamin D and magnesium and I never drink alcohol, you know, my testosterone will go up, right? Because it's all about these little tweaks. And it's like, wrong. No, that's not how it works at all. Testosterone is fundamentally social, okay? These little things, tinkering around the edges, they are not going to raise your T significantly at all, okay? What will raise it, the only thing that will raise it, is putting yourself around women who are highly arousing to you. Hot women, women you want to fuck. Put yourself in the same environments as them. Go to the same places. Bars, nightclubs, restaurants, beaches in summer, beach clubs. Anywhere there's a high volume of hot girls in one small place, you want to be there. That's what's going to give you this sexual energy, okay? Not staying at home, not going monk mode, not this Huberman bullshit, but actually putting yourself around hot women, approaching women. This raises your testosterone, your sex energy, because again, testosterone is a competitive thing. Your body only produces it when it knows you're in competition with other men for fertile mates. If you're just spending your weekends alone looking at the TV, why the fuck would your body make testosterone? There's no reason to. So along with nofap, along with no porn, to build this substance, to build this energy that makes you magnetic, you also need to be going out, talking to girls, taking action, approaching hot girls. And even if you're not approaching them, you just need to put yourself in the same environments as them physically. Not looking at them through a phone screen, not texting them through a dating app, but physically be near them. You need to be able to fucking smell them, okay? Smell those pheromones, smell that fertility in the air. That's what's going to give you that fucking desire. And then step 5, final step, is have an aim. You must have an aim. You need to have a goal or a group of goals, something you are actively working towards. Now, if you follow the first 4 steps, that will tend to happen quite naturally. You know, if you've got a high sex drive, if you've got high T, high desire, and if you're going out, you're putting yourself around women all the time, you're going to find yourself feeling sexually frustrated. And that is actually good. Frustration is the basis of an aim. An aim, a goal in life, a mission, is not something you get because you're happy and you're at peace. It's something you get when you're frustrated, pissed off, envious, lustful, borderline, miserable. Having an aim comes from the fact that there is something you want which you cannot have. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's money, maybe it's success, notoriety, recognition, maybe it's girls, maybe it's a certain type of girl. And very likely it's a mix of all those things, okay? Now, having magnetism to women requires you to have an aim and to be working towards that aim every day. You need to have a mission, you need to have a master plan, you need to be up to something, because mission is magnetic. It's what gives you that glint in your eye, that spring in your step. And this is an intangible factor. Okay, it can't be quantified, but it's just very, very important to your overall vibe, to your overall magnetic energy. And whenever I say this, you know, guys are always like, oh, well, I don't know really what my aim in life should be, or, you know, how do I find what my mission is? I don't really know what the purpose of life is. You know, what is the meaning of life after all? No one can say. And it's like, bro, you're overthinking this. Just do what I've said. Do nofap, squat heavy, lift weights, don't watch porn, go out to bars where there's hot fucking girls. You're going to find your aim, okay? Why? Because you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be looking at those girls. You're going to be seeing them hooking up with guys who aren't you. And if you have the slightest bit of testosterone in your blood, you're going to be like, fuck, you know, this pisses me off. I want that girl. I should be fucking a girl like that. Well, now you have an aim. It's not something you have to solve the meaning of life to figure out, okay? It just comes from that basic frustration. You know, monkey sees something, monkey wants something, monkey can't get something, monkey has to get smart to figure out how to get it. That's aim. That's mission. Anything more complicated than that is overthinking it. And so some of the aims you might develop from this might be, you know, I want to get better at game so that I can approach and seduce a girl like that when I get the opportunity. I want to make more money or get more clout, fame, status, whatever, so that I'm a better deal for her overall, so that I'm more attractive. I want to be able to afford a better lifestyle, better car, nicer clothes, apartments. And obviously you can have other goals, and you should have other goals that aren't just related to sex or to, you know, sexual value. But this is a video about sexual magnetism specifically. And to have sexual magnetism, you actually have to be somewhat not sexually frustrated. It's paradoxical, right? You know, you might think sexual frustration is a bad thing, but actually frustration is just another word for desire. And the whole point of this video is that desire, sex energy, is what makes you sexually magnetic. But the trick is you have to get skilled at holding that desire without letting it get out. That's where the magnetism comes from. That's where the atmosphere, the aura comes from. Those guys, when they feel that sexual frustration, the instant they feel it, they open their phone, they look up some porn, they fap, boom, frustration's gone. You cannot become magnetic that way. You cannot become a great dictator, a great cult leader, a great seducer of people in that way. You have to let the frustration build. You have to let it consume you like a holy fire, to burn with desire, to burn with passion. Do you know what that feels like? Most men today never will, because it's just too easy for them. It's too pleasurable to put out the fire. And what I'm saying is, all I'm saying is, don't put out the fire. Let it burn. Become the fire. For nearly a century, every effort has been made to stop this fire from blazing, because they believe, the people who run our world believe, if men feel this strong desire, they will become Nazis. They will become fascists. They will be seduced by quote unquote authoritarian ideologies. There was a book written in 1933 by a man called Wilhelm Reich. It's called The Mass Psychology of Fascism. And Wilhelm Reich was a doctor. He was a psychiatrist. He was a Marxist. He was Jewish. And so he'd been forced to flee Germany when the Nazis came to power. And his basic argument in that book was that semen retention creates fascism. And he didn't put it in those terms exactly, but what he basically said was, when a man orgasms a lot, he'll be more likely to support Marxism, communism, egalitarianism, which in Reich's opinion, he obviously saw as a good thing. Well, for a very long time, we have been living in a society that's engineered by people who see things very much like Reich did. The engineers of our current system know, just as Reich knew, that men who don't ejaculate become dangerous. They become beasts of prey. They also become highly individualistic and individuated. They become charismatic, seductive, and therefore dangerous to the ruling elites, dangerous to the ruling political formula. Whereas, if men are orgasming constantly, they become, quote unquote, happy. They become placid and harmless and as docile as cows. And this is why porn is put in front of you. This is why it's free. This is why no effort, no expense, no ingenuity has been spared in making jerking off to porn as easy and as pleasurable for you as it possibly can be. The ruling elites do not want you to feel strong desire. They don't want you to feel any passion at all. They want you to feel happy, which is really a state of numbness, libidinal exhaustion, a lack of potency. And in this way, they've been very successful in putting out this fire and assuring that it stays put out. Well, I say that the only meaningful goal of our age, the only goal that matters, both on a collective level and on the personal individual level, is to reverse this process, to re-enchant the world, to start the fire, to become fire. And when you do this, then you will be magnetic. Then you will understand the secret. Then and only then will you have the potency, the gravity to attract, the potency that makes you magnetic, seductive to weaker-minded people. I'm going to be releasing a new course about this in summer. It's going to be called Cult Leader Charisma. But it's still in development right now. So if you want to be alerted when I release that, you can sign up for my email list by clicking the link below. Also, if you haven't got it already, I strongly recommend you download my free book, How to Make Beautiful Women Approach You, no matter your looks, age, or money. Click the link below to get that now and learn my 5 techniques that I use to make women approach me every time I go out. Any guy can do these things. They work instantly to make girls approach you, to compel them to hit on you, to flirt with you. And this makes it extremely easy for you to get laid. So click the link below, grab that free book now while you still can, sign up to the email newsletter with new articles from me every day there, and I will see you on the other side.
Are you watching closely?